The secret to being rich is not a college education, but can you control cash flow? It's cash flow. Where is the cash flowing?
The shortest distance between you and wealth is having no debt. I happen to be the aggregator of the information.
I borrow in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
If you could borrow $1 billion, 0% interest.
No.
I love gold and silver. I've started a gold mine, a silver mine.
Gold is a commodity. It's a rock that is yellow.
Trade this piece of toilet paper in for this. Oh no! Dave Ramsey said save money.
It's not necessarily what Dave Ramsey thinks.
That savers are losers.
I was doing a book signing a while back, and she said, I don't even know you, and I don't like you.
If you're not competitive and you're a wimp and a crybaby, follow Dave Ramsey.
So you and I will now argue. Are you ready?
If you're an idiot, go listen to Dave.
Quite literally labeled as one of the dumbest financial advice books out there.
You're stupid and arrogant.
Okay.
Then don't interview me. You do your own stupid show.
And he should have had 25 million because you screwed up and put it in the wrong thing.
Tax-free. All that money's tax-free because it's debt.
Right. Well, that was fun. Dave, you're looking good over there.
Better than I deserve.
Better than you deserve, that's right. All right, so as promised, I said there's going to be audience participation. Get your paddles ready. Let's see that first question. This is what we're going to ask them. What is your perspective on how money works? How does money work? Man, I've heard Rob doesn't even believe money's real, and Dave says you should collect it. Who do you think you're going to agree with on how money works? Go ahead and let's start the voting now. Let's see votes for Dave first. Just if you're voting for Dave, let's get that count going.
That's a lot of votes. A lot of votes.
How does money work, Dave?
My perspective on money. Well, first off, thank you, Tanner, for letting me come here to this beautiful city of Lynchburg. Here you make champions for Christ. In our Lynchburg, Tennessee, we make Jack Daniels. So I appreciate you letting us come. First off, money will magnify who you are. If you're a generous person when you don't have money, you're going to be a generous person when you have money. If you're a skinflint, you're a cheap person, and you get money, you're going to be a cheap, rich person.
You get more money, it will make you more of what you are right now. If you are miserable and you get money, you will be lots of miserable. If you're a jerk and you get money, big jerk.
All right, I'm going to pause here for 1 second. I can't do this whole debate dressed like this. It's important to know what Dave Ramsey says, but not how he says it.
Right.
We all know he's kind of a redneck from Tennessee, so forgive me, that's coming off too.
It doesn't look super breathable anyway, so that's fine.
It is not. I'm sweating like crazy. I didn't expect that part. I expected the...
I'm just glad
I'm
Robert
David
had a head of hair,
That's funny.
All right, we're back. The first powerful step when it comes to your relationship with money is to have a plan. Jesus said, don't build a tower unless you count the cost, lest you get halfway up and are unable to finish. And all who see begin to mock you and say, this man began to build and could not finish. You need to have a written plan. We call that a budget. My good buddy John Maxwell says, a budget is people telling their money what to do instead of wondering where it all went. Winning is an intentional act. So we need to control the controllables, and a budget is how we start to do that. The second thing is you need to get out of debt. I know you're really surprised that Dave Ramsey came here tonight to tell you that, but the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. I lost everything because I let somebody else have control over my life. I was a slave. Some people say, well, Dave, I don't agree with your perspective. Well, that's okay. This is America. You're allowed to be wrong. My old pastor said, a man with experience is not at the mercy of a man with an opinion. Debt is bad. I have led more people out of debt into wealth, made more millionaires than anybody else on the planet today. I'm not bragging. I just showed them how to do it God's way. I didn't make any of this up. I did it God's way and the same way your grandmother did it.
That's how money works. All right. Rob,
You know,
what do you say to that?
money, Dave, is fake, and savers are losers. And the second that you can start to understand that money is fake will be the moment that you start to understand how to build real wealth.
That savers are losers. Now, I know this goes against the grain of what most people tell you, save money, save money, save money. But the reason savers are losers began back in 1971. And in 1971, President Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard and made the U.S. dollar the reserve currency of the world. One of the reasons we have so much economic volatility in our economies today, high gas prices, high food prices, stock market booms and busts, housing values going down, all can be attributed back to 1971.
You see, there's two types of assets. You've got fake assets, and then you've got God's assets. Fake assets would be like this thing that we call money. This is fake. We've got a lot of fake teachers teaching our kids skills so that they can get more of this fake money, and never teaching them anything about financial literacy, about how to become wealthy. When it comes to assets, your greatest asset is what's in between your ears, what's in your head. And there's something I developed called the cash flow quadrant. And right off the bat, it's important that we understand that there is a difference between a liability and an asset. An asset is something that will put money into your pocket. A liability is something that will take money from your pocket. What does an asset do? It does what? Puts money in your pocket. An asset example, we have an investment property. And this investment property is going to create an income. That is an asset. A liability would be something like a car. It's not an asset. It creates an expense. That expense might be a car payment, taxes, insurance, maintenance, gas. All of that money's coming out, and that is ultimately a liability. So let me show you two cash flows. One, we're going to talk about a poor person. For a poor person, they've got a job. And as we know, job is an acronym for just over broke. So congratulations, you've got your job. It's got its hourly wage. From that hourly wage, we come out and we pay our expenses, our taxes, rent, food, transportation, clothes. And if there's money left over, if there's money, you've been fooled into thinking that you need to save that money in a bank, saving fake money. Middle class, y'all have graduated to the point that you've got a career. Well, congratulations. You've got a salary, and you keep fighting for your next raise. Well, that particular salary is right here. You mistake assets for liabilities. And you come over here and you buy a home and you buy a car and you have your college degree. Am I stepping on toes? All of a sudden we come up into expenses. We've got food, clothes, mortgage, car payments, student loans, personal property taxes, blah, blah, blah. All of that money comes out. You have none left over. If you do, you were fooled again into putting it into a very crappy bank to protect and save your money. The rich have figured out that you buy assets. You buy real estate, stocks, bonds, notes, intellectual property. All of that turns into income, rental income, dividends, interest, royalties. You do have expenses. You're going to have a lower tax rate, so congratulations on that. Less money going to the government, food, clothes, living expenses, and then you're disciplined enough to know that I'm not going to put my money in the bank. I'm going to go buy more assets. It's going to create more income.
All right. Thank you, Rob. What do you say to that, Dave? I mean, he laid out a bunch of stuff. He was writing and he was linking things. What do you say to that?
Well, first off, if you have to write it on that many pages, it's a little too complicated, I think, for most people. But I know we both went bankrupt at one point. I seem to learn a little something from mine, and I don't know if you learned a lot from yours.
Well, you might have filed bankruptcy, but you were also doing 90-day rollover loans. I've got $1.2 billion in debt. I have not yet begun to talk on debt, and I will in just a moment. But my $1.2 billion is a non-recourse debt against commercial property. So it sounds like you had structured the wrong type of loan for your particular bankruptcy.
Yeah, I learned from that.
Well, you heard it. Now that you've had a chance to hear the responses on how money works, we want to come back to you. Who do you now agree with? Was your mind changed by what they brought up here? Let's bring the voting.
Dave
Votes
first?
for Dave first. Hold it up high and proud.
Sea of Dave.
Okay. Let's get into question one. Dave, you started off by saying money just magnifies who you are, and one takeaway I had was just have a plan, budget. What did I just call you Dave? I think I did.
Call me Dave.
Okay, Josh.
You lose.
Josh,
Jake lost the first round. You get the second round. Yeah.
What did he get right?
No, I think at the end of the day, Dave does say that money is a tool. I'm totally on board with that. In most cases, paying off your debt is the right thing. I think we'll talk specifically about what I think he got right and wrong in a little bit. But I think his perspective on money being a tool, I'm on board with that. I think that's the right way to view it. It's not a means to an end, just don't amass a bunch just because, but it is a tool. So I thought that much of what Dave was saying, I'm on board with.
What about what he might have spent more time on that you think he doesn't give enough attention with how money works?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the fact that in the 40 plus hours of podcast, he never once asked somebody, hey, what's your interest rate? You know,
Seems
a few
like an
years
important
back.
thing.
Yeah, so a few years back, McKenna bought a car. She got a car payment. It's at 0%. When inflation hit, that bank is losing money like crazy because the dollar that I pay them back with in 3, 4, 5 years is worth a heck of a lot less. The payment didn't change. And so sometimes Dave can't hold two thoughts in his head, right? Like, yeah, we can talk interest rates, Dave. He never, ever does.
What did Robert get right? And feel free, both of you can comment on Dave and Robert. You said money is fake. Your greatest asset is your brain. You talked about the cash flow quadrants, assets and liabilities. What did Robert get right? What did he get wrong?
He definitely got right that financial literacy is lacking and that we need to have some financial literacy. Without question, it's not taught in the schools the way it should be taught in schools. And although I don't believe that money is fake, I can absolutely get to where he's going. The only reason that a dollar has the value that the dollar has is because the government said that it has that value. Sure. And we've been real not pleased with the value that government has said our dollar is. So I can understand that, and I can appreciate the real asset argument that Robert makes. I will say that I have problems with his aggressiveness and lack of context. Yeah. I've told this to Josh a lot of times. If anybody in this room said, hey, I'm going to pick up one of these two books and I'm going to blindly listen to them, then I'm actually going to tell you to pick up Dave Ramsey's book because he won't blow you up. Right. And Robert's strategies can blow you up if you don't have proper guidance along the way. So
I think we're done voting. Let's get into the debate. What is debt? We're going to start with Rob on this one. You like debt?
Yeah, so, money is not real, okay? I don't know how many times I can say that. And so we do not need to focus on the amount of debt that we actually have. Now, I do want to make sure I make a clarifying statement here. There is bad debt and there is good debt. So let's make sure we make a clarifying statement there. I'm a fan of good debt. So allow me again to educate you, your greatest asset, on this particular subject.
The Rich Dad Company really believes that improve your financial IQ, noticing good debt and bad debt. And if you have good debt, you get richer and richer. If you have bad debt, which is debt that takes money out of your pocket every month, like your credit card, your car payments and stuff like that, then that's bad debt.
This is going to be really simple. When it comes to bad debt is something that is taking money from me. So I'm going to zoom in right here. Here are some examples. I've got my home, I've got my car, I've got my college degree, and I have, affluence of wealth. Come on, people. I mean, y'all could have connected that. Affluent or appearance of wealth, okay? The things we're buying to make people think that we actually have money. Now, that liability is going to be shown off in taxes, food, clothes, mortgage, car payment, student loans, personal property taxes, vehicle and home maintenance, and then the appearance of wealth. And that is ultimately bad debt. If you have to go into debt to buy one of those particular things, I don't want you to have that debt either. So I don't want that type of debt. We do have good debt. When it comes to good debt, if I'm buying real estate, stocks, bonds, notes, intellectual property that's creating rental income, dividends, interest, and royalties, that's good debt. And I don't have a problem with that type of debt. Now, you might say, why wouldn't I just go ahead and pay cash for a real estate property? I've got $250,000 in the bank. I've got a property worth $250,000 that I could go buy that could start giving me a stream of income. What's wrong with me paying cash for that? Well, the problem is that it's a mediocre rate of return. There are easier ways for me to make, let's just call it 10% instead of me being a landlord. So let me show you this example. I've got $250,000. I'll try to zoom in. I've got an investment property at $250,000. I'm expecting a 10% rate of return. I'm going to pay cash, so my personal investment's $250,000. 10% of $250,000 is $25,000. That sounds like a good day or a good year, okay? Now, the problem is that's very normal in your rate of return world of 10%. I want more than that. So in a leveraged deal, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go to the bank and say, I've got $250,000, I wanna buy an $800,000 property. That $800,000 property, I'm gonna put $250,000 down. My expected return is 10%. So my investment is $250,000. The bank is going to give me the other $550,000. We good so far? Yes, class? The gross return, 10% of $800,000 is $80,000. Now, I have an interest payment that I need to pay. The interest cost, if I got that loan at 7%, is $38,500. I take my $80,000, I subtract out my $38,500. I ultimately have $41,500 or 16.6% on the exact same $250,000 after the expense of the interest. So that is a better rate of return, and it will help me ultimately get to my goal, which is to have a solid net worth that I can live off of, and I can ultimately accomplish that task a lot faster by leveraging someone else's money.
He did some math there. What do you have to say to that? What is debt, and what's your view on it?
I think that math is dizzying. There's a lot of flying around there. It feels a little bit like a snake oil salesman to me, but let me have my 2 cents. I'll sum this up in one word when it comes to debt. MasterCard. They're not even trying to hide it. They're saying they're the master and you're the slave. Something magical happened when I started paying cash for everything. I had an income coming in. I didn't have very many bills, and I had this thing at the end of the month called money. It was hard for a couple of years, and I relearned this ancient word called no. Not very politically correct right now, and people don't like hearing it, never mind having it said to them. So I did something a little radical. I call it plastic surgery. I cut up my credit cards 30 years ago. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Money. American Distress, Discover Bondage. I carry 4 pieces of plastic in my wallet. My business debit card, my personal debit card, my license, and my handgun permit. In 30 years, I have not had credit card debt at all. No debt. In our proven process, we've helped people deep in debt become millionaires over and over and over. Almost the very first thing you do when it comes to debt, baby step number 2 says you pay off everything except your house. We're going to tell you to do that too, but that comes later. Debt is bad. Proverbs 22:7 says the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender.
What do you have to say to that, Robert?
You know, the Bible does not forbid debt. At the end of the day, Paul states to not borrow without the intent to pay. Moses laid out some rules where he said that we could lend to people within our tribe, there's going to be no interest. Outside of our tribe, there will be interest. You also have Jesus that said, give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. So it's not that he is forbidding it, he is simply giving guidelines within it when we have debt. I think we're going to have two different definitions of debt. At the end of the day, I believe that bad debt is something that is a liability. And a liability is something that's ultimately taking money from you. And I would agree that they're a slave, and I don't want them to be in that particular situation either. But in this good debt scenario, I have an $800,000 property that I own that I can also liquidate and pay back that particular obligation because I'm good in that particular real estate transaction. So I do believe that there is a difference between good debt and bad debt. So do you have any place in your heart that you can say that there is a point to be made that there is such a difference between good debt and bad debt?
Pay cash for everything. I hate debt. We have the snowball to teach you how to get out of debt. You have a snowball that tells you how to get deeper in debt.
Absolutely. We call it velocity.
Velociraptor. I call it the wrong type of snowball. I think all debt is bad. If it's all paid off, they can't come take it. That's my experience.
Yep. Well,
and I've helped millions of people, by the way.
I've had the top selling book 25 years in a row in the financial industry. So we both have.
That's the only way you made your money.
Hey, you know what? A business owner makes a lot of good money.
That's fine. Double your net worth.
You're $200 million. Yes, you're $200 million.
All right. Calm down. Man, we're getting a little spicy up here. All right, any other comments? All right, I think we've nailed that down. Afterward, Dave had 54. Oof. Robert did good on this debt question. It looks like you convinced some people.
A lot of fast talking is what it is.
Right, and then Robert had 48.
So that's almost 20 people increase.
Yeah, that's interesting. So why don't you start us off, Jake? What does Rob and Dave, what did they both get right and wrong about debt?
Yeah, so I'm in lockstep. And that's probably why that was easy. There is good debt, and there is bad debt.
Yep.
And I like how he spins what is an asset, what is a liability. It's a different way of thinking about it than how we were taught to think about what an asset and a liability is. But once you turn on that switch, it does start to help you understand where debt can be appropriate. I don't think that he should have 100% finance, even if it is non-recourse loans. There is an appropriate way to structure that particular debt. But no, I believe that there was more that I agreed with in that particular section for Robert than I disagreed. Again, my problem was if you listen to Robert, he will do something called velocity, which is where you're taking your leverage and you're leveraging leverage to ultimately speed the process up even more. I've literally read close to maybe 1,000 pages between 3 different books, and there is one paragraph, literally this big, that says, oh, by the way, this can destroy you as fast as it lifts you up. But financial literacy will overcome it. And it's like, no.
Doesn't really address the risk that he should. What are your thoughts?
You mind pulling up on the Vibe board? I have that one
sure.
slide there about Dave. And this is where I'm going to give him some props. So, guys, if we can put that up on the screen, that'd be great. So a couple of things that Dave gets right is discipline, right? A lot of people that come to Dave Ramsey, their finances are in shambles. They have been so undisciplined. And so he brings discipline to many, many people's lives for the first time ever. He confronts them with this reality of this is only going to get worse, right? So that reality that Dave brings is really good for some people. He shows them a process that I don't necessarily agree with all the way, but it still is a process. To Jake's point, you're not going to be worse off if you do this. If you get out of debt, even if it's not the right way, that's still better than being in debt. So the process is good. He uses terms like, your finances are on fire, you're fighting for your life, it's an emergency. And forgive me, I keep falling back into that stupid drawl. But he does that. The other thing Dave does good is he's monetized this business really, really well. All his real estate empire didn't come because he's really great at flipping houses, because he made a ton of money on Financial Peace University. I'm not knocking that, but he's monetized this, and I think his weakness here is that he will not vary from that 7 baby steps. Like, Dave, can we take one adult step maybe? maybe 2 adult steps. Nope, all baby steps. It's like, okay.
We're going to go to you, Dave. Go ahead
Thank
and give us your best strategy for
Dan,
building wealth.
thank you. We have a very specific way that we think you need to get out of debt and build wealth. And I'm going to ask the guys if they put that up on the screen for me. And they did it already. Perfect. This is what we call the 7 baby steps. And many in the room may be familiar with them. You may have done them yourself. So I'm just going to talk through this because we think this is the best way to get out of debt and build real wealth. $1,000 emergency fund. So as quickly as you can, I want you to put $1,000 in a boring old savings account. Not a money market, none of that kind of stuff, just $1,000. So when the refrigerator goes or the tires blow out, you're not using them dadgum credit cards to pay that. You're using that emergency fund. The second thing is, and this is where a lot of people spend some time because they have some debt, we're going to tell you to list all of your debts from the highest right on down to the lowest. And we're going to tell you to pay the minimums on everything except for that lowest balance. Call it the snowball because we want to see right away that you're having success by paying off that smallest debt, and then you work your way to the next one. So now you're out of debt. Now what? Well, now you got to really put some defense in there. So we're telling you again, boring old savings account, you build, you save like a smart person, 3 to 6 months of expenses in savings, all right? So now we've got all the debt gone. We have a fund to play defense if something happens, and now it's time to plan for the future. We're going to plant some corn at 15% of your income into retirement accounts. Now, we're going to talk more about how we do this later, but you know Roth IRAs are great, traditional IRAs, 401ks. This is where things can get really, really exciting. We'll talk more about this later. Then if you decided that you want to help your kids for college, we think you should do 529 accounts and education savings accounts. That's up to you whether you have a step 5. Some people say, I want to pay for my kids' college. Some people say, I'll help them a little bit. Some people say, heck, Junior's on his own, all right? Well, now we bring it all home with baby step number 6, paid off the mortgage. We say a paid off mortgage is today's paid off Mercedes-Benz. We think it's a great thing to do. So just every penny extra you have, you just put it on that mortgage until that thing is paid off. The average person can do that in 6 or 7 years if they get serious about it. So now, baby step number 7, it's time to build wealth and be generous. We talked about being generous early on in the night, and this is where you can start investing and building wealth and giving back and being very generous to your community.
Goodness. All right. Robert, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so this really comes down to 3 things, and I don't believe the vibe board's going to work. That's okay. I've got really big letters. There's going to come down to 3 things. It's going to come down to education, investing in your greatest asset, which is in between your ears. The next thing is discipline, and then there's going to be fearlessness. And ultimately, most plans break down because of discipline. This is ultimately where my friend's plan breaks down as well. If you don't have discipline, you're not getting out of debt. And if you don't have discipline, you're not saving over the long haul. Discipline is ultimately coming when you've learned how to control fear and greed. It is fear that puts you in a job because you feared if you could pay your bills or not. And then once you got up, went to work, got your paycheck, you look at that paycheck and it's greed and desire for the things that you want to buy. So you end up getting into that rat race. Get up, go to work, pay your bills. Get up, go to work, pay your bills. If you don't learn how to control the emotions of fear and greed, the next pay raise is not going to fix your problem. The next pay raise is simply going to make you a highly paid slave. The middle class is confused because they don't realize it's fear and greed that is making their decisions. They're not able to be disciplined. So they get that income coming in. They confuse themselves on what is an asset, and they pick up more liabilities for the appearance of wealth, which matches their expenses. And then if there's money left over, they're saving it in a bank. Again, the rich have figured this out. The rich, as their income comes up, because their assets have come up. They have practiced discipline by keeping less expenses, and then they take that money and they go right back into buying more assets. And as they continue to do this, it continues to evolve and make more money. Guys, I have luxuries, I just buy them last. And I pay for luxuries, I call them tenants. I pull the money out and I pay cash when my wife says she wants a new Porsche to pick up the groceries in. And my tenant pays the bill. These assets create income, and I minimize the amount of liabilities that I have.
All right, Dave, you want to rebut that?
I just think we think about this world so differently. In my world, it is about being completely debt-free, because then you can do whatever you want to do. If I don't have bills to pay, and I'm making income, whether that's rental income or earned income, I can do whatever the heck I want. And so we just think about this differently. I would rather have real estate and cash and investments than leverage after leverage after leverage and hope that something doesn't happen in one of my markets where it could all go poof again. So we just see this so differently.
I started buying and selling real estate in my 20s, starting from nothing. I had $4 million worth. I was a millionaire when I was 26. Then I lost it all because the loans got called by the banks, and my theory of making the spread all went to kaput because I got zero out of it. I ended up bankrupt at 28. And I got the opportunity to start over, which made me question my former theories because my former theory didn't work. What I had left out of my theory, what most people leave out of this theory that you and I are discussing, the 3% versus the 10% mutual fund, the 7% spread appears to be there. What we leave out of that theory is risk.
We might see this so differently. Compound interest will make you a millionaire.
That's right.
I'm speeding up the process.
And adding risk, lots of risk.
The risk that I'm taking is within good debt, which is producing me an income. I use real estate, which God's not making more of it, as my backdrop to the loan that I'm ultimately making. I gave an example just a moment ago of a 30% down position on an $800,000 property. I have 6,500 rental units that are 100% financed. Every bit of it's financed in non-recourse loans. If the bank wants to call that loan, that's their problem, not even my problem. I'm taking all of the income right off the top.
I would hate to be your executor.
Someone's
going to have to sort all that stuff out. God bless him.
All right. I guess that concludes the strategy, number one strategy to build wealth. Looks like Robert, you were ahead on this one.
Good job.
Yeah. So Dave had 49 votes before, Robert had 61 votes. So actually pretty split compared to the stark contrast. It was 79, Dave, and then we went down to 49. They don't like Dave's strategy much, I guess. Afterward, we had actually more. You changed some hearts and minds on strategy, 63 to 39.
Which is really surprising because I cannot get behind Dave Ramsey's baby steps as a wealth building strategy.
Right.
I can get by. I think I might steal your thunder. Like, did you say do baby step one and then call a financial advisor?
I haven't said that. Yeah, but yeah, that's really what it is.
Really what it is. And so I'm actually surprised that I didn't convert more believers over to Robert because Robert really does have a great plan when you're saying, hey, listen, let's not put so much value on how much money you have in cash in the bank. Let's get that money to work and let's buy real assets. Now, he was talking about real estate in that particular example, but he also mentions assets as stocks and bonds and REITs. Whether he invested or not, he does acknowledge that they're assets. And so, getting that money to work is something that I can get behind. And so I actually doing study on both of this, getting ready for this, I could get behind Robert pretty easily.
So this question 3, is that where we are?
Yep.
So pull up that next slide for me, please. big vibe board. If you were here last time, I messed it up. So I'm having Tanner take care of it. I found this picture of Dave that you got to blow it up on the screen.
I'll blow it up on the screen. This is actually pretty good. Yeah, that's true.
What Dave gets wrong. Sorry, I just thought that was
We
hilarious.
love Dave. We love Dave.
We love Dave.
We also
Yeah,
love
sure,
this
yeah.
picture.
Yeah, it was great. Okay, so what he gets wrong, there's 4 points here. In the first one, Danny, you're messing up.
I know. I promised.
It's a cookie cutter, right? He doesn't care whether you're 16 or you're 70. He doesn't care what stage of life you're in. You're going to do those 7 baby steps, dadgummit, whether you like it or not, okay? And so in my mind, I'm sitting here going, no, this is the point. Get the emergency fund and then pick the phone up and call Legacy, because our plan is going to be for you. He doesn't talk about what your goals are. He doesn't talk about any of that. He says, you're going to do it this way. That cookie cutter, it's not for everybody. Interest rates matter. I talked about this earlier. If you have a 0% car loan, don't pay that off early, right? If you have 0% anything, don't pay it off early, because at the end of the day, you're paying them back, right, with dollar that's worth less in the future. That's where it goes to time value of money. He makes no consideration for the fact of compounding interest versus declining interest. On a mortgage, you have declining interest balance. When you have an investment, it's a compounding interest balance. Never discussed that, right? And then the other thing was those 4 mutual fund selections. Again, whether you're 16 or you're 60, it makes a difference what your asset allocation is. He doesn't talk about fixed income at all. He doesn't talk about in the portfolio having different types of investments. You're going to own all stock, 100% stock, and 3 of those 4 categories, we would consider them aggressive growth. So for us, we think, get your $1,000 set aside and give us a call, because we'll make a plan that's customized for your particular situation, not just a cookie cutter and say, man, this worked for me 35 years ago, it's going to work for you.
Yeah, and he also makes the point that you're going to get 12% every single year, no matter what, and that you can live off 8%. Anybody who's retired knows that's just not an accurate number that you're going to be getting at that, and he's putting on a lot of aggressiveness, which is we're about to get into the allocation thing, which is why I can't believe Robert and Dave have such a different opinion when it comes to allocation. But it's just hard to get around how black and white. It's going to be this. Everyone's in the same scenario, advice that Dave ultimately gives. But again, it's not going to blow you up if you listen to him. But man, there's some better ways to accomplish that. It's almost like Dave just assumes that you're never going to be disciplined enough to manage your wallet.
You need him in your ear for the rest of your life, and it's like,
Yeah, but once you know how to manage money, and both plans require discipline.
Yep.
And either way, you've got to be able to not only be smart enough and fearless enough, but you've got to be disciplined. And both plans break down when you don't and I agree with the whole fear and greed thing that Robert says. Yeah, we counsel a lot of people.
Yep.
And it usually boils down to one of those 2 reasons of why they cannot get their act together.
Right, psychology of money. And that's something that Dave really helps a lot of people, that discipline, that simplicity, the baby steps. There's a reason they call them baby steps, because it's supposed to be simple to change the way that you're thinking. What allocation do you suggest for different asset classes? Is it real estate, gold, Bitcoin? Is that even an asset? I don't know. We're going to hear from them.
So I don't have a fancy graphic for this particular question. I used to be on CNBC a lot. They've asked me to stop commentating because I told their viewers that I'm not going to buy anything that's been printed. I buy gold. I buy silver. I buy gold mines. I buy silver mines. I buy real estate. I do not buy stocks. I do not buy bonds. I do not buy real estate investment trusts. These are all fake assets. I sure don't invest in currency. That's the king of all fake assets. I have bought some Bitcoin because Bitcoin, we have a common enemy in the government. I bought 60 Bitcoin for $6,000, and that is worth a little over $1 million now. But yeah, I'm not going to be buying anything that's a fake asset. I'm going to be buying gold and silver.
All right, Dave, what do you say to that?
Well, I do agree that real estate's a good investment, but I buy it a little bit differently. As you know, debt. I think you pay cash for those properties. So we do agree with real estate. Precious metals, as I talked about earlier, it's just pretty rocks. I don't invest in precious metals because I like my money and I don't want to lose it. So definitely not there. So we're going to take a step back a little bit to baby step number 4. If y'all remember what that is, you probably don't. But it's talking about saving for retirement. And I want you to remember this, that match is better than Roth, is better than traditional. So when I talk about investing 15%, if your company offers a retirement plan, let's just say they match 5%, that first 5% needs to go there. That next 10%, if you can, I would like all that to go into Roth. Now, if your company offers Roth 401k, you can put all 15% right there. If not, you're going outside and you're opening Roth for you and your spouse, if you're married. And if you max that out and have more, we're going to go to a traditional IRA. So that 15%, just remember, match is better than Roth, is better than traditional. 8 out of 10 millionaires invested in their own 401k. 3 out of 4 did additional investment outside of that. So just remember, investing is important. So when you get to baby step number 7, rock and roll. Now, where do I want you to invest that? I think there's really, in my opinion, the best way is mutual funds. 4 different types of mutual funds we're going to invest in. What a mutual fund is it's a lot of different companies all in one account. So you can make one investment and have your money spread all over the place. First mutual fund you're going to buy is a growth and income fund. Those are big old American companies. Think ExxonMobil, Coca-Cola. 25% goes right there. Call them blue chips. The next 25% I want you to look at growth mutual funds. Those are what we call mid-cap funds. Those are medium-sized companies. They're still big, but not as big as the old boys. And I want you to put about 25% in that. The next 25% we're looking at aggressive growth. This is going to be the wild child of your portfolio. You're going to put 25% here, and this is in mostly small companies. Again, these are all publicly traded, but relative to the big companies, these are small, and this is going to be your roller coaster. It's going to have big years and really big down years, but hang on. Over time, you're going to do really, really well. Last place is international mutual funds. Don't get this mixed up with global. Global funds have some U.S. in there. International is everything outside of the U.S. Again, 25% there. Now, if you take that advice and invest in those 4 areas, you're going to make about 12% a year. And in retirement, you can pull out about 8% a year, and you're going to be just fine. So that's where I think you should invest.
Yeah, that sounds like the slowest possible way to make wealth. You've got your 12% returns. I just showed you a way at 16.6, and I was being conservative. I'm not going to invest in any type of government-sponsored plan because they put too many rules and regulations on us. They're not going to allow me to have leverage within my IRAs unless they have extremely specific rules, or it'll start to eat your lunch. This carrot that they dangle in front of you is ultimately because the government is wanting to create a bigger tax bill for you down the road. I might be able to get on the same page with you on the Roth side of things, but even then I'm only putting $6,000, $7,000 if I'm lucky into that. Maybe inside of a 401 or Roth 401k I can step up a little bit more than that, but we're wanting to build real wealth, Josh, in a Dave. In a short
You
period
broke first.
of time.
You broke first.
Yeah, I broke first. Daggone it.
Nobody say anything.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah, there's
Okay,
a wager
back
back
here.
there that's happening. That completely threw me off track looking at that beautiful face.
I know.
I'm completely frazzled now. So I'm going to end up buying gold and making concentrated positions in businesses. This diversification thing is going to slow down the ability that I have to be able to make wealth. So I'm not on board with the 25, 25, 25, 25. The SEC is a complete joke. They're watering down all of your good investments. They're protecting you from the worst of the worst, but they're not allowing you to get the best of the best. The only way you're going to get the best of the best is to be a business owner, buy the company, and take all of that revenue and profit for yourself.
What's a stock? You own a business. You just own a bunch of them.
I don't mind selling the stock,
Right.
but I'm not buying stock because it's printed.
I got you. You don't mind selling it, but you won't buy it.
That's absolutely
You'll sell
right.
REITs, but you won't buy REITs.
That's exactly right.
I got you. So wealth is built over time. To do it the right way, everybody in this room knows that there's no get rich quick, because if you get rich quick, you get poor quick. So we believe in a disciplined approach over time and investing in things that have a more than a century track record not some leverage on a gold mine in Zimbabwe. We believe in real investments and real companies that do things.
Oh, sure, and I'm all for that. I've got gold, which is God's money, that's been around for thousands and thousands of years, and I absolutely agree with that. So thank you for making my point.
God's money.
All right. Whoo, that was got a little heated. All right. All right, let's get into question 4. This is kind of interesting as well. Before, y'all voted for Dave, 66 and 26 for Robert. We're losing some people here.
It's the gold mine, scare them away.
Afterward, Dave had 84. I don't know what you talked about.
Are you kidding me?
Apparently people don't like gold. I think
steps.
maybe you said Bitcoin and maybe that turned people, I don't know.
Zimbabwe gold mine, I think, scared them away.
Question 4, after we had the debate, Dave had 84, Robert had 22.
Yeah, my mom got up and left. Like, she was like almost embarrassed.
I couldn't believe that. I saw that. I was like, wow.
She was like, I can't believe this crap.
Yeah, sorry about that, Jake.
Yeah, sorry.
But what did Robert get right? What did Robert get wrong? Real assets, you talked a lot about that. Precious metals.
Yeah, he's really hypocritical in this particular spot. He will go out and buy businesses, but he won't go out and buy stock because he said it was printed. And that's where Josh makes his point. Well, what is a stock certificate? And I've got nowhere to go with that, right? Because you're, because he will sell stock of his company. He owns gold mines, and he owns silver mines, and he'll sell you a stock of it, but then he won't go and sell it. Yeah, gold and silver and gold. And then he also wants to say that why would you buy the stock market at all-time highs? Why don't you buy gold and silver at all-time lows? And that's because until the last, 6 months, gold and silver, they never even had gotten back to their highs in the 80s.
Right.
If we want to, let's see, I'll show you a real quick chart.
Pull it up.
Maybe the reason I'll invest in stocks is because since 1985, let's zoom in, gold has made 470%, not too bad, but it ain't nothing compared to 3,200% within the stock market, even with its ups and downs. It's gold and silver, 154% for silver, 470% for gold, 3,200%. It was at a high here, it was at a high here, it was at a high here, here. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's
may as well be a yellow rock.
Yeah, it really is.
Pretty yellow rock.
It really is a yellow.
Pretty yellow rock. You're right.
It is a pretty yellow rock, and it's and the point is he makes the same point about cash. He says it's only worth what we say it's worth.
Right.
That's flipping gold. Right. Gold is worth something because we said it was worth something until we decide that it's not worth something.
And the difference is at least the government has taxing authority. Gold doesn't have any taxing authority. There's something underneath the dollar. And again, we can talk about how it's not really worth what it's worth, but at the end of the day, they at least have the ability to tax if they had to. Gold is just agreed upon value.
It's agreed upon value, and it's a complete trade.
Yeah.
You have to be right where you buy it,
That's Bitcoin.
and you have to be right where you get out of it. You own a stock, you're at least going to be getting interest and dividends. During the lost decade, from right here to right here, because they said for 10 years, the stock market made no money. They call that the lost decade for anybody who was inside the 2008 investing in that particular time of the Great Recession. Well, the only little asterisk they didn't tell you was that that's not including the dividends that the stocks made.
Right.
Once you put dividends into consideration, the stock market made about 30%. Now, are we happy with 30% over 10 years? Nope. But if that was gold, you really would have had a lost decade. You really wouldn't have even made the 30%. In fact, we can see gold right down there. We can see gold kind of doing its thing. And then it hit its highs, kind of doing its thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, come on, man. Yeah. I can't get behind Robert on gold, which no wonder I lost votes. I almost didn't vote for myself.
And I think
22 to 84.
Legacy's position, too, is when it comes to asset allocation, risk matters, right? And so we want to find what's the appropriate amount of risk for you and match you to a portfolio that has similar risk. Dave's not even a licensed advisor, but he's giving investment advice to say, be 100% stock, regardless of your circumstances in life. And so we're like, no. There's a much better way to do that.
Yeah. Man, a lot of good stuff. What tax strategies do you think everyone should consider while building wealth?
I know Rob is the whiz kid about how to not pay taxes. Some of it might be in some gray areas. But I have a couple tips, too. First off, I want everyone to know that I hate the national progressive income tax system in America. I think we should have a flat tax or a national sales tax. But unfortunately, we know those knuckleheads up in Washington probably will keep this same old system in place for a long time. Because you do have to file your taxes, I just want to let you know there is Ramsey Smart Tax. That for $39.95, you can go online and we'll help you file your taxes. It's a lot better than that TurboTax. We don't hit you with those hidden fees.
I'm sorry, we can't plug your own products here, Dave. That is not appropriate.
Ramsey Smart Tax, look it up.
I'm watching you.
Everybody needs to file and pay their taxes, duh. But you shouldn't be giving Uncle Sam a tax-free loan every year. So I meet with folks all the time and they say, well, Dave, I love getting back that big refund because we can go on vacation or we can do something special. Well, you're giving Uncle Sam a tax-free loan. So I suggest you reduce that. It's a really great tip, by the way, that you reduce that income tax withheld so you're not giving that tax-free loan every year because you can spend the money a lot better than Uncle Sam can. So just so you know, you shouldn't be afraid to make money. If you want to get a side gig, we're in America, there's a lot of opportunity. Just know sometimes the price of success is you're going to pay some tax. So don't be afraid of that. Now, most people don't itemize, but there are a couple of things that if you do itemize will help you a lot. The first thing, we talked about baby step number 7, plug, is when you're generous, you can deduct your charitable giving if you itemize. So that's really important. So when you're generous, make sure you can deduct that. Second thing is, when you save for retirement, depending on what types of ways you're saving and your income, Uncle Sam will give you some tax credits there if you deduct as well, depending on your income. Now, there are also some adjustments to income that even if you don't itemize, you can take. We call these our secret tips. Number 1, did you pay student loan interest? I hope not, because I hate debt, but if you did, you can deduct some of that student loan interest. Did you make contributions to a health savings account or an IRA? Again, there may be some credits there. Are you a teacher? Those are the heroes, right? K through 12, many teachers spend a lot of money out of pocket for supplies and other things. You can now deduct some of that and not have to itemize. Also, if you receive income from self-employment, I know there's a lot of business owners out there. Some of that is also a credit back against that Social Security that you paid. So I'll stop there. Those are some very common sense things for folks. I know the whiz kid's going to drum up some crazy stuff, but that's for most people that can do that.
All right, whiz kid, what do you think about that?
You know, the government wants to encourage certain activities to build out their economy and to build out their the ultimate infrastructure that they want. And they have 2 ways of doing that. They can do it through force, or they can do it through incentivizing. And when you look at the tax code book, 95% of the tax code book is talking about ways to lower your taxes. Only 5% of the book is actually talking about how much you need to pay. So that means there's plenty of rules, legal rules, that you can follow to create deductions. Dave happened to mention some of those. But if we want to really lower our taxes, we need to change the facts. And what are the facts? Well, the facts are that there are 4 major categories when it comes to how you are taxed or how you are looked upon as a citizen of the United States. I call this the cash flow quadrant, and you're either an employee, self-employed, a business owner, or an investor. If you're on the left side of this quadrant, an E or an S, if you're an employee or self-employed, you're going to pay the highest possible tax rate that the government has out there. They're also going to give you very few deductions. Now, if you're on the right side of the quadrant, a business owner or an investor, they are going to give you more than enough deductions to ultimately write down your income almost, if not all the way to 0. What you would want is to work towards being in the left side and work towards the right side so that you have permanent tax deduction. So someone with a W-2 income is going to come in and they're going to have their income, and if they're disciplined, they're going to ignore their desire for liabilities and they're going to buy assets. From this, which we've already discussed, those assets will turn into income. So for that particular person, they will have their career or their job that is paying income. So for a period of time, you will have a job or you will have a career. But you're going to be disciplined enough to buy assets so that that income is moving you over to the right side of the quadrant where you're a business owner or an investor, where you're going to have a more friendly tax rate. What will eventually happen is you won't need any W-2 income because your assets will eventually be all of your income, and you will then take that, pay out your expenses, and continue to build out your assets like we talked about in your wealth building strategy. Now, this might take 5 to 10 years. It might take some time to transition from having a career to having this be able to self-sustain you. But this is how we change your facts so that over time we have a lower tax table for all of the money that you're making. So that's ultimately how I would construct a plan to save you money in taxes.
Dave?
5 to 10 years, you'd be a millionaire in my plan.
Okay. Fair? Okay, fair.
Yeah, what do you have to say to that, Robert?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you're paid off.
5 to 10 years from now, you'd also be a millionaire and paying less in taxes. Right, so I'm going we are going to use leverage. You're not going to use leverage.
Right.
The 5 to 10 years that you're talking about is assuming a 12% rate of return after you've gotten out of debt.
Every year is what it does. Every
right?
year.
But there's a period of time that it's going to take for that person to get out of debt before they can take that 5 to 10 years to do this.
Baby step 2. Yep.
Baby step 2, that's right. This is something that's going to allow them to ultimately start where they're at right now with their job. They do have to create discipline so that they can create the assets to ultimately eliminate this chunk and write themselves tax code that is more favorable, because a business owner and investor will always have a better tax table than a self-employed person or employee.
Ramsey Smart Tax.
Oh, God. That's hilarious. Ramsey Smart Tax.
$39.95. We'll help you.
All right. Is that your rebuttal? Is that it?
That's my rebuttal.
Okay. Anything else to say? Okay, fantastic. Well, let's go to number 5, best tax strategies.
Ramsey Smart Tax.
That was hilarious.
That was kind of funny.
Plugged your own software.
That was
was pretty good.
That's a Dave Ramsey thing to do.
So let's take a look at the votes. So before, Dave had 65, Robert had 37. So after Dave had 57, Robert had 46. Looks like Robert changed some hearts and minds. I think most of that has to do with there wasn't a ton of strat. I heard itemize. Make sure you max out your retirement, make your insurance payments on school loan. Like, what's the strategy?
His number one tip was,
taxes?
if you're getting your refund, go talk to your employer about decreasing your withholding. That was the number one tip. I'm like, wow. We're going to get crushed on this one. But
Dave Ramsey was going to get crushed, and I'm surprised I didn't bring over more votes.
They just like me better.
Yeah,
they do like you more.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's understandable.
This was just as much of a
get
personality test as it was anything else. They're like, he's being so mean to Josh.
He's got the whiteboard and he's doing this.
But Robert makes a lot of great points that there are 4 different categories to be looked upon. And over time, you can make a transition if you want to make that transition. The thing I don't agree with on Robert is that Robert believes that a job is the devil. Yeah. And everything, he is constantly pushing you that you have to be on the right side of the quadrant, a business owner or an investor. And not everyone is built or has a desire to be a business owner or an investor. So the job is not the devil. With that being said, if you want to transition over to the right side of the quadrant, over an appropriate period of time, you absolutely can. And you go and buy real assets that will pay interest, dividends, rental income, et cetera, et cetera. so that income is an income that is taxed less expensively. And it's pretty substantial. We're talking, at a minimum, you escape payroll taxes, which is 15.3%. Yeah, 15.3%. Pull that out of thin air. Thank you, Brian.
Good job, Drake.
Yes, and that's not an insignificant amount of money. You make $100,000 a year, that's $15,300 less in taxes that you're paying, right?
Yeah.
And real quick, you brought up your first thing was you hate the national progressive tax, wants a flat tax. What are your guys' thoughts on a flat tax, like our current taxing system?
I mean, I'm for a flat tax.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no question. The more you make, the more you pay, but the percentage is the same. 51% of people in the United States pay zero federal income tax. 51% pay zero federal income tax. The top 1% pay a massive amount. They can get all the shade they want, but they're still paying half or more of all the taxes. So there needs to be some system. I have very little hope that it'll ever happen, where there's some sort of flat tax that if you make a lot more money, you're paying more dollars, that percentage is the same, because it's very progressive and a disincentive for a lot of folks, and they find other ways around it, just like Rob Kiyosaki does,
Yeah, and again, if you want to go to the right side of the quadrant, if you want to be a business owner or you want to be an investor, you absolutely can start taking some very legitimate deductions to write down your income.
Yep.
Your taxable income. It's absolutely a very real advice that he gives in the book. Again, the biggest thing for Robert is that you cannot blindly listen to it without the counsel of an advisor. And thankfully, within his book, he does say, find a good advisor. Because he openly says, I'm leaving a few things out because at the end of the day, this subject matter of finances is so deep that he's just trying to give you strategies. But I could see how someone could read this book and misinterpret the risk that they're taking, and it absolutely crushed them. And cue Dave Ramsey, right? Because that's ultimately the reason why Dave Ramsey is so adamant against debt. My problem with Dave, and you said this, Dave, a person from a Dave could go turn into a Robert, from an investment point of view. The problem is that if you were someone who struggled with debt, and you listen to Dave, and then you hear ideas about Robert, you may think that it was the debt that was the devil. And it was not the debt that was the devil. It was your behavior that was the devil. And so now all of a sudden when you introduce a tool, because Dave will say that money is a tool and money is amoral. It doesn't matter if it's buying a brick to be thrown through a church or if it's building the church. Money didn't care. Debt is the exact same thing. Debt didn't care if it was buying the appearance of wealth and it was a bad debt, or if it was buying real estate, which was an asset, which was creating an income.
Right.
The debt was a tool in both scenarios. It was the person behind the tool that made the determination of how that was being used. And so my fear is that you might have some Dave Ramseyers who think that debt's the tool, and then they're never willing to understand that there is a more efficient way to build your wealth with leveraging other people's money. There is a place for that.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to add on those 5 questions?
I think we're going to do Q&A, but you got something first?
Yep. So real quick, I just want to thank Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey for having a perspective, for getting the education out there. Both of them have great plans for people to build wealth. Lots of great things and lots of things that we think they should take a second look at. Real quick, Thomas, if you don't mind joining me on stage. Dave and Robert, both of you have helped millions of people around the world build a successful financial future for themselves and their families. Tonight, we did our best to portray your perspectives on finance and building wealth. Though your strategies are very different, we have a lot of respect for the positive impact you've had on the world. We want to hear from you. Did we get it right? Do y'all want to see this debate?
Yeah! Ooh. Yeah!
All right, thank you, Josh. Thank you, Jake.
Yep.
It's been a ton of fun.